And it hit me just as we were sitting here that everybody that you see in front of you is a Stage 32 educator, and couldn't be more pleased to have them in the community. These are the types of talent and the types of professionals and the types of people, I will say, because I think you're going to get a feel for how wonderful they are, that we love to bring in, people that love to give back. On the creative side, I'm a producer, actor, and screenwriter. On the acting side, I had a film that played at Raindance last year. The writing side, just finished the feature that I was commissioned to write, which is great, by a major production company, and a TV pilot that we've been pitching. We just attached the showrunner. We could talk a little bit about that, because these are all things that have been happening during the pandemic that we've been pitching all over town to production companies, networks, platforms. And on the producing side, involved with Chick Fight, which we'll talk about, that just came out a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of other films, another independent film that just came out a couple of weeks ago, and some other stuff that we've had in development while this has been going on. So a lot of action. The idea that things are not happening, absolutely not true, which is why I think we're here.
That's exactly why we're here, which is actually a perfect segue. One of the things I wanted to start with is, both RB, you and Andrew did release films during this pandemic. And Andrew, I actually want to start with you because, you obviously you've been on the producing side. You're, on the television side with Boardwalk. I mean, you are a friend to the Emmys with Top Chef and with Cheer. And, the one thing is that you had a really, really kind of heartfelt release this year, which was what you talked a little bit about in We Are Freestyle Love Supreme. And that's one that you directed. And that's one that you poured your heart and soul into it. And I know that you've worked on shorts in the past, and this was your first feature, and it was a long time in the making. So can you talk a little bit about your journey as a director, and then ultimately getting to the point where you were releasing this film, during the pandemic?
Yeah, and thank you. I think, I've always thought of myself as a producer. I mean, I've thought of myself as a storyteller, but on the TV side of things, which is how I came up, certainly on the unscripted side of the TV business, it was rarely, if ever, a director-driven medium. And so producers produce and sort of helm those shows. And so I came up as a producer. As our work became more premium based, and as that became a thing, right? I think we all have businesses that are about 10 years old. And so it's interesting to look at that snapshot. But prior to that, the idea of, documentary television as a mainstream thing, even, prior to like 6 or 7 years ago, really prior to Netflix, that was an abstract idea. As our TV business became increasingly more premium, it became director driven, no different than the film business. So I had directed episodes of our shows. I've directed 7 episodes of Chef's Table and a lot of, the other shows that we do. But the film that I directed, which was the first doc feature that I had directed, was the result of footage that I had shot now 15 years ago. I had seen an improv performance on a Thursday night in New York City and was just blown away by what I saw, got in touch with the group and said, I'd love to film you guys. Long story short is that group, the members of that group are Lin-Manuel Miranda and Chris Jackson and a host of other incredibly talented and ultimately very successful people. And the footage that we captured 15 years ago and for the several years subsequent to that became this treasure trove of archival material of really the beginning of something that I believed, and I hope audiences have agreed, is quite impactful. And so the decision to revisit that footage and check in with the group today and revisit that footage and then cut it all together was a decision that we made certainly prior to quarantine. We finished the film in time for Sundance, which we were, fortunate enough to be accepted to. So we premiered at Sundance in January. And we had just the most grand plans for, you know, what we imagined the New York premiere of We Are Freestyle Love Supreme would be, with Lynn and the group performing live for thousands of people, and just, you know, everything that we imagined went away in a flash. I'm not sure that it wasn't a blessing, to be honest. I'm not sure that uh, the noisy, you know, we hear the phrase break through the clutter, right? Like, how are we going to break through the clutter? How are we going to break through the clutter? I don't know how this movie would have broken through the clutter in an environment where, just talking about Lynn in particular, like Lynn had In the Heights, the film that was supposed to come out this summer. He had his Hamilton film, which ultimately came out this summer, but was supposed to come out this winter. And, you know, there's just, how do you break through the clutter? How do you break through the noise? For us, we had a release date, and then we released after that date, because even within the year and how crazy the year was, our original release date, and now I don't even remember the day, but it was to be 6 days after the protests started around the killing of George Floyd. And we got on our big Hulu launch call with 30 marketing people talking about all the things we were going to do that week. And the faces just looked, you know, the faces on that Zoom were like, what are we doing? And so if I had been wearing my producer hat, I don't know that I would have had the courage to say this, but as the director, I sort of raised my hand and said, you know, I know the plans that go into releasing a movie, and I know how challenging it is to coordinate all of that. But don't you think we should share this particular story that is one of joy and gratitude and excitement and celebration? Don't you think we should share it with people when we're excited to